Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to make a video for Tag Tuesday. It is early Wednesday morning, so this is Tag Tuesday Wednesday edition. The tag is called Counting the Days, and it is a tag that was created by both To Readers It May Concern, as well as Prose and Petticoats. I actually saw this tag first on Genre Books and Book Chat with Pat. The prompt seemed really interesting. When I saw the questions, I immediately knew, okay, well, I want to talk. These are books that I would like to talk about. Yeah, it seemed like a really fun tag. So without further ado, here's number one. Number one, what is a book that excites you because of its cover? The book that I chose for this question is Rum Punch by Elmore Leonard. And my video is not giving the colors of the cover justice. This is a really cool kind of pink-orange cover, and this has got a really cool kind of teal crane with a ammo belt in its beak. This novel, I saw this. This book kind of jumped out to me when I was book shopping one day. I am familiar with the. Well, I've never read it before, but I'm familiar with Rum Punch. As far as I know, it's the movie that Quentin Tarantino based, or excuse me, it's the book that Quentin Tarantino based Jackie Brown on. As far as I know, unless I'm mistaken, it is the only Quentin Tarantino movie that has been based on a novel. The cover, I love this mass market paperback edition. I love the kind of the raised lettering. It's really, really cool. At some point, I will read this. I don't know when, but I suspect there's going to be some day when I'm looking at my bookshelf and my list of books that I want to read, just nothing really interests me that day. I'm going to see this book sitting there. I'm going to say to myself, today's the day I'm going to read Rum Punch. So I'm not sure when I'll read it. I'm excited too, though. But that's Rum Punch by Elmore Leonard. Number two. What is a book that excites you because of its author? I really could have picked any book by this author. It's an author that I've mentioned before on this channel. I've read 2 of his books this year, and it is Dr. No by Percival Everett. As I've mentioned, I have a few of his books. I could have picked any of them. I enjoy this author very much. I was introduced to Percival Everett through the movie American Fiction. That film is based on his novel Eraser. It was excellent. If you want to read contemporary fiction, I think as a living author, this guy's great. I really enjoy him, and I'm excited to kind of to read all of his books one day. He's very prolific. He's written I'm not sure how many, but it's a lot. It's going to take me a while, I think, to collect them and read them. But at some point, fairly soon, I want to make this maybe one of the next books I read by him. So that's Dr. No by Percival Everett. Number 3, what is a book that interests you because of its premise? This book, it's SSGB by Len Deighton. I think I'm saying that name right. And this is all I need to know. Just the first sentence on the back of the book is, it is 1941 and Germany has won the war. So it's an alternative history novel. And that immediately piqued my interest. Also, at the time I kind of found out about this book, I think I was probably in the middle of reading Stephen Ambrose's book on D-Day. So I knew that I wanted to read more World War II. I've mentioned my World War II reading list in past videos. And I think when I'm in kind of deep into World War II, I'm probably going to throw this in there. Just to kind of break up my nonfiction books when I'm, deep in my military history. The only other kind of alternative history book that I've ever read was Philip K. Dick's The Man in the High Castle. I loved it. Now, that book takes place kind of a number of years after the war. And there's also a science fiction element, unsurprisingly, in the Philip K. Dick story. I don't know if that's the case here, or if it's just a straight up, nope, it just events happen differently. There's no kind of maybe science fiction reason why. But yeah, other than Man in the High Castle, I've never read an alternative history novel, so I'm very excited to read that. So that's SSGB. Number 4. What is a book that excites you because of its style? This is an author that I've read earlier this year. I love the way he writes. I love his style as a nonfiction author. And it is None Died in Vain, The Saga of the American Civil War by Robert Leckie. Previously this year, I read his Revolutionary War history, his single-volume history of the American Revolution. In fact, that was the first video I made for BookTube. So I will go ahead and put, if you want to watch it, my very first video, I'll put somewhere up here. I will put a link to my reaction to that book. But what I like about Robert Leckie's style is he writes very small, bite-sized chapters, and I like that. I like short chapters. He does a good job writing about the battles. He finds places where he will put the reader kind of into the event so you can get a really good sense of, what it was like on the ground, just kind of from the common soldier's perspective. He does a good job of, the broader perspective of what's going on in the battle, and then, what's going on in the war strategically. But also he's very good about giving you short biographies of all the main players. So what he will do is he'll have a chapter, if a new kind of person is introduced to the story, he will write a brief chapter with a short kind of biography, and he will bring you, through their life up to the point where they enter the story. So he balances that very well. So he balances kind of the people versus the kind of the military history side and the fighting side of the war. I don't know when I'm going to be interested in the Civil War, but when it happens, and it will happen, this book is going to be my first book. So that's None Died in Vain by Robert Leckie. Number 5. What is a book that interests you because of its influence? I might be bending things slightly. One, I'm picking 2 books, and I'm actually picking these 2 books because of the book that came just before these 2. It is 2 books in a series, and it is Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. This is books 2 and 3 of the Dune series by Frank Herbert. I read the first Dune maybe about a little over 10 years ago. I enjoyed it. I read it again this year, and I loved it. At some point when I read these books, I'll talk about it. But briefly, there's one thing I'd like to say that I loved about Dune that I didn't really appreciate when I was younger was there was these psychedelic scenes where Paul Atreides can he kind of has if you've read Dune, you know what I'm talking about. He kind of can see into the future, and sometimes he kind of gets in a valley where he can't see into the future. Sometimes he can see all the paths forward. It's really weird, really trippy. I really liked it, and I think those scenes bored me when I was younger. I found them much more engaging kind of as an older reader. But anyway, I've never read any of the sequels. I think I probably started this and then just kind of stopped, maybe less than a quarter of the way through. But I will read these at some point fairly soon. I've heard from many sources that it is a good idea to kind of treat these as one book, which is why I picked them both. So when I read Dune Messiah, I'm going to follow it up immediately with Children of Dune. But that's, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. And I think probably very influential to the science fiction genre. All right, number 6. What is a book that what is a book that excites you because of its emotional weight? This is one that I would have a hard time picking a fiction book. Obviously, I haven't read any of these books, so I don't know, for fiction books, I don't know what the content is going to be like. So I went ahead and picked another nonfiction book, and it is At Dawn We Slept, The Untold Story of Pearl Harbor by Gordon W. Prange. Bad with names, folks. I apologize. I've mentioned before in this video that I have an interest this year in reading more World War II military history books. I'm sure that this book, and which I've mentioned before on my channel, I'm sure that this book is going to get heavy and emotional. I've read, I think when I was in high school, I read Day of Infamy by Walter Lord. And if I remember correctly, I mean, that's a shorter novel, or shorter book than this. But I do remember reading about, the sailors that got trapped, they couldn't escape, and, they had to spend, I think in some cases, up to a couple of weeks just cut off. That's harrowing. I imagine to find stories like that in here, and just the loss of life is of course horrible. But yeah, that's At Dawn We Slept. I expect this to be somewhat emotional. So there it is. And next up is number 7. What is a book that excites you because of its humor? Again, it might be difficult to pick one because you haven't read the book. You don't know if it's going to be funny. So this is one that I hope is going to be funny. And it is Jane Austen's Emma. This will be the second book of Jane Austen's that I will read. I did read Pride and Prejudice earlier this year. It was the first Austen novel that I read. I never had to read her in high school. But I did find her writing was very funny, very witty, kind of sarcastic. I dug it. It was good. It was a lot of fun. Of course, going on in July is the BookTube event, Jane Austen in July. I'm not fully participating. I'm sure I know there's kind of multiple prompts. I think the goal would be to read 4 novels, I'm assuming. I'm just going to read the one. I'm participating in Book Trek. I want to read at least 1 novel for Rocket Summer, maybe 2. And then I'd also like to read Emma this month by Jane Austen. I've heard this one is, and I hope I'm not wrong here, but I've heard this one is kind of one of her funnier novels. So I think this is the one that I was planning to read anyway. So it fits perfect for this prompt. But yeah, that's Emma by Jane Austen. And lastly, number 8. What is a book that excites you because of it's, it might be a challenge or you might find it difficult? I have on my long-term reading list, I would like to tackle Ulysses by James Joyce one day. I would like to tackle some more epic poetry, which gives me a little trepidation. Maybe Metamorphosis by Ovid. There's some other big, hefty classics that I'd like to read, like Les Mis by Victor Hugo. But the next book, it's not written by Joyce. It's not a big fat classic. Not an epic poem. It is The Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan. This is book 8, I think. Yeah, book 8 in the Wheel of Time series. You can see this is my bookmark. I read books 1 through 7 back to back. Got about a third of the way through book 8 and had to stop. And that was maybe 3 years ago. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I stopped reading this. I liked the series, but book 8 is I think where most people agree that the so-called slog begins. I think it's books 8, 9, and 10. And I don't know if it's the book slowdown or if it's just, hey, after sticking with 7 books in a series, by book 8 you're just going to start to get tired of it. So I think that's what happened to me here. I do plan on finishing Wheel of Time. I will, when I jump back into it, I'm just going to dive back into book 8. I have a really cool app. I think it's the Wheel of Time character app that you can kind of you can tell it which book you're on, and it will tell you character histories up to that point in the series where you are. I think you can even tell it which chapter you're reading, and it will, say you encounter a character at the end of the book that was introduced in the beginning of the book. you can tell it which chapter you're on, and it will tell you about that character, from the own novel you're reading, without spoiling, the point that you're at. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so I'll when I dive back into this, I have my character app. I have there's plenty of summaries online. I know the booktuber Daniel Green. I think I've used his summaries before. Of each Wheel of Time novel. When I start a new novel, I will always kind of go through the summaries of the previous novels because, you inevitably forget something. But yeah, at some point, I'll dive back into this. I don't know when. When I dive back into fantasy, I think I'm going to reread Lord of the Rings first before I tackle finishing Wheel of Time. But who knows? We'll see. But yeah, so that's number 8. Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan. Anyway, I found that tag a lot of fun. I don't know yet the proper etiquette of kind of tagging people. So I'm gonna put some booktubers down in the description. I will tag some people. I don't know if all of you are into doing these types of videos. So if I tag you and if you like doing tag videos, do this tag. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to stand in front of your bookshelf and kind of go through these questions and pull books off the shelf. And if you get tagged and you don't do these videos, then don't do it. No one's holding a gun to your head. But yeah, and also if you have a booktube channel and I didn't tag you, but you make booktube videos, do this tag. It's a lot of fun. I think you're going to enjoy it. But that is all for now. At some point soon, just to give you a short, if you stuck this long, just a preview for next time. I am almost finished. I'm going to finish it. I should be able to finish this tonight. I've been reading very slowly Frankenstein, the original 1818 text by Mary Shelley. I'm reading this for Rocket Summer. It's my old science fiction novel. So hopefully I'll finish this tonight, and within next few days I'll give a book reaction to this novel. But that is all for now. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. Thank you.